Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Welcome, everyone. Today we're taking a close look at a seriously high-stakes geopolitical situation unfolding right now in one of the most vital waterways on the planet, the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to break down a recent series of U.S. naval strikes, the really complex international disputes surrounding them, and the profound impact this is having on a massive, incredibly vulnerable workforce. By looking at the data, the timelines, and the political fallout, we'll see exactly how a distant conflict has sparked a major crisis back in India. To really wrap our heads around the scale of this, we've got to start with the human element. 300,000. That's a massive number, right? Well, that represents the total number of Indian seafarers currently working in the global merchant shipping industry. It just establishes the immense scale of India's maritime footprint. Millions of dollars in remittances, and honestly, the smooth operation of international trade as we know it rely heavily on the sweat and expertise of these workers. But things get a lot more specific and honestly, a lot more urgent when we look at this next number, 18,000. Right at this very moment, there are about 18,000 Indian sailors navigating the highly volatile Gulf region, specifically working on foreign flag ships. They are out there right now, surrounded by rising geopolitical tensions, which suddenly puts them right on the absolute front lines of international crossfire. So moving into the deadly strikes themselves. What was previously just a theoretical vulnerability turned into a very real, visceral tragedy over the course of 3 chaotic days. Let's explore how the sequence of events actually went down. The timeline of these U.S. naval strikes is remarkably fast and precise. On day 1, an F-18 launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln fired a precision Hellfire missile directly into the engineering and steering space of the Marvo, which is a Palau-flagged vessel. Fast forward to day 3, and a similar strike targets the Mount Sabatello, also Palau-flagged. And then by day 4, the Jalvir, a Guinea-Bissau flagged ship, is hit. In all 3 of these instances, precision munitions were targeted specifically at the engine rooms of these commercial vessels. That's absolutely crucial to note because those are the exact areas where the crew operates. To really grasp the sheer terror experienced on these ships, just listen to the words from this harrowing distress call from the Marvo. Quote, "We have fire on board. U.S. Navy attacked the missile on our engine room. Total all crew Indian. 24 crew, please help." Unquote. It drops us directly into the terrifying reality faced by those 24 Indian sailors on board. Fortunately, in the case of the Marvo, all crew members were successfully evacuated by the Royal Air Force of Oman. Tragically, we have to look at the 3 lives lost. Not everyone made it out of this escalating conflict, so let's shift our focus to the devastating realities aboard that second vessel, the Mount Sabatello. We need to remember the 3 victims here, guys who came from completely diverse backgrounds across India. First, there was P. Suresh, the chief engineer from Andhra Pradesh. He was incredibly experienced, essentially staying on past his contract out of a sense of responsibility to his company. He leaves behind a wife and 2 young kids. Then there's Shivanaman Chaurasia, a fitter from Uttar Pradesh, and finally Aditya Sharma, a young deck cadet from Himachal Pradesh. And the timeline of the communication right before the strike is just heartbreaking. Aditya Sharma was only 23 years old. He was the only son of his parents, just starting his career on probation. He sent this reassuring WhatsApp message to his dad on a Monday morning saying he was absolutely okay. Tragically, literally hours after he hit send on that message, the lethal strike occurred. His family spent days in a total panic before finally receiving the confirmation of his passing. Now, this personal tragedy is sitting right in the center of a much larger, highly disputed geopolitical web. Let's look at the conflicting international claims here. The big takeaway here is understanding these 2 completely contradictory narratives. On one side, U.S. Central Command justifies the strikes by claiming these vessels were non-compliant and carrying sanctioned Iranian oil, basically engaging in illicit transport. But firing back on the other side is IOS Marine, the UAE-based management company for the MC Patello. They issued this fierce 4-page denial. They're stating that there was 0 communication from the U.S. Navy prior to the strike, no warnings were given whatsoever, and the ship was engaged in entirely legitimate commercial operations. They are directly challenging the U.S. to produce any evidence of prior communication. Adding a whole other layer to this, the Forward Seamen's Union of India released a statement expressing their firm conviction that U.S. naval forces were completely aware of the exact demographics of the crew. They're arguing the military knew there were Indian nationals in those engine rooms before they fired. On top of that, the International Maritime Organization has stated that under UN maritime laws, launching military attacks on commercial vessels is illegal and unacceptable, and they're demanding an independent investigation. So when citizens die in international waters, the political ripples back home are
immense. Let's move to Kenya and see how this builds into a massive domestic crisis, India's political storm.
This issue has sharply divided Indian politics. The Ministry of External Affairs, representing the government, responded through fairly routine diplomatic channels. They issued a démarche to register a protest with the U.S. Embassy, but they also pointed out that the ships were foreign flagged, and they cited the U.S. claims that the vessels were non-compliant or sanctioned. Now, on the flip side, the opposition and various critics are fiercely condemning the Prime Minister for remaining publicly silent on the deaths, arguing that there has been absolutely no strong, high-level condemnation of the United States. To really highlight their arguments, critics are drawing some direct comparisons to the past. They point to incidents like the 2013 Italian Marines case or the Deviane Khobragade incident. Back then, the government, and specifically current leadership when they were in different roles, showed this fierce, highly public diplomatic assertiveness against foreign powers. They are contrasting that past assertiveness with the present approach, relying on routine diplomatic notes and a complete lack of public condemnation from the Prime Minister directly toward the U.S. The intense domestic pressure the government is facing is probably best captured by this direct statement from Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition. He stated, quote, "When a foreign power kills an Indian, the PM must speak, but our compromised PM has not uttered a word," unquote. This really encapsulates the fierce political attacks going on right now regarding the government's handling of this crisis and its perceived lack of a forceful response.
The debate in India is definitely fierce, but the reality out on the water remains completely unchanged. Let's zoom back out to the fate of these highly vulnerable seafarers. Because this issue is just too big to ignore. Look at this. Indian workers make up a massive 12% slice of the entire global merchant shipping workforce. This brilliantly illustrates just how crucial Indian labor is to keeping global trade actually moving. But conversely, it shows how uniquely vulnerable they are to international crossfire. When commercial ships are targeted globally, it is statistically highly likely that Indian citizens are going to be the ones in the line of fire.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly pressing question. With 18,000 Indian sailors still actively navigating those perilous waters of the Gulf, and international rules of engagement seemingly shifting overnight, what happens the next time a geopolitical dispute turns deadly? As global powers clash, the safety of hundreds of thousands of maritime workers hangs entirely in the balance. It's a heavy situation for sure, and one that demands our attention. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning what's happening behind the headlines.